telling us what happened after his good buddy, his best friend, the #1 employee at TSN was arrested, was that he told the newspaper that he needed to step away. Well, why did he need to step away? Don't you ever ask that question, why? All of a sudden, he is arrested. All of a sudden, the FBI issues a public document, a press release. All you needed to know was Isolino's real name and have access to the internet. Then you would realize that he was arrested for having over 6,000 images of child porn. Don't blame any of us. Don't turn it upon us. You guys were the only ones that knew Isolino's real name. Iso Doe gives you nothing. You will not be able to get his name based upon that. The newspaper knew his name. The newspaper had access to the internet. This was not something, Gina Levy, that was needed that you had to go to the police blotters. No, this was a press release by the federal government. You will know if your good buddy and his name, Isolino, is arrested. That actually occurred on May 26, 2023. Let that sink in, Bob. May 26, 2023. That's 16 months ago. 16 months. The federal government issued a press release. And you say, well, we don't check everybody every day. Well, if you knew his name, all you would have to do is type it into a computer and it would come up. This was not hidden. This was not private. So the question is, when did the newspaper know? Why won't the newspaper just come and tell us when was the first time you had any idea? If you had a best friend and lover that you guys met in this kid's chat room smoking weed at night. Remember, this is a long, long love affair. This wasn't someone that you just hired off the street. You hired this guy because you had a very hard feeling for him. You hired him, and then what you do? Eventually, he comes to you after doing all this work, all of a sudden and says, I don't have any access to any computers. I have no access to internet. I can't have access with kids. And by the way, I'm moving in with my family, and I can't communicate you via any electronic devices, which I have none. Wouldn't the next question be why? Why? In lies negligence, right? So we don't know if the newspaper intentionally is dumb. I won't say that he's intentionally that dumb when your best friend tells you all this, when your #1 employee tells you all this. Remember, most likely Isolino cannot have access to any computers, any emails, any type of electronic device. No access to his kids, no access to his wife. This is your good buddy. We have all that. Here's a funny thing. Isolino can't touch his Twitter account. So as much as the newspaper is trying to sweep everything under the rug, Isolino's Twitter account cannot be touched. You know why? Because there's a court order, most likely, that he's not allowed to access any type of internet, any type of social media. So no matter what you do, if you type in Isodoh, Isodoh, you're going to get his Twitter and any other social media. He's not allowed to touch it. So as much as the newspaper wants to delete things, we get that, which is cool because we want the authenticity. We want the real aspect. We know the newspaper lied. Now he's saying he lied to cover up for Isolino, which could be true. He's not obligated to tell us the truth. Whether you like it or not, the newspaper is not obligated to tell us the truth. It would be nice, but he's not obligated to. And it's very plausible that what he's saying is true. The news story. There's a third story that the newspaper has now. First, he told us he didn't contact Isolino within the past year. Then that guy, Sketchy Press, beautiful job, puts together a montage of all the times he told us that he did contact ISO. Now, again, the newspaper could be lying there. Then yesterday comes out with another story. The third story, I was just trying to protect Isolino, which could be true. But Bob, it's time to get to the bottom of this. Show us your phone records. Show us the internet correspondence. Now, again, I referenced this email I got from Isolino. It was in October of 2023. Remember, Bob, on May 26, 2023, the federal government issued a press release telling everyone in the world, anyone with access to the internet and Isolino's real name, Isolino, you would know that he is a pedophile. You would know at that point. So I get an email, and you know what it said? At the bottom, it said a J. So it gives me this whole big email, but from Isolino's address, but it's signed J. Now, I don't know if that's Joe. I don't know who it is. But the FBI needs to know that someone was using Isolino's email address, or Isolino was, and we know for sure Isolino was probably not allowed to access any type of internet. So, Dewspair, if you were communicating with Isolino, as you said you were, about 7 times, get to the FBI today and tell them how you were communicating. If you were using his Gmail account, because at a certain point, Isolino probably told him, look, man, I can't access anything on the internet. I can't access any type of phone. I can't access any type of internet. I can't even talk to my kids. I can't even see my kids or any other kids. And the Dewspair, I'll believe that he's this dumb, doesn't ask why. And maybe he did ask why, and maybe Isolino said, look, this guy's so dopey, I'll just say, oh, I'm going through a bad divorce, my wife's crazy, therefore I'm not allowed to access any computers, have any of my 5 computers, be on the internet, be on social media, have access to my kids. And by the way, for some reason, I can't work with you, because that would be across state lines and via the internet. And the Dewspair doesn't follow up, or he's so easily duped that he believes that. That could be the case. He could be that dumb in terms of business. And I explained them before, the people you keep around you will determine your future. I'm not saying that the Dewspair is obligated to actually help them to the point where it leads to someone being helped in terms of a victim, but he's got to do something. And here is yesterday's show where the Dewspair is now coming up with a new story after he was busted by Sketchy
Some
Press.
of these clips were as recent as a couple weeks ago. Thanks. No problem. So originally when Iso left, he said he was going through an ugly divorce. And the first thing we agreed as a group was to not mention that Iso was leaving because...
So it was a group cover-up right now. And I get it. When I say cover-up, they don't want to harm Iso. Perhaps what he's telling them is the truth. He's going through a divorce. And that's actually the respectable thing to do. But the Dewspair Bob is saying it was a group decision. No one in the group asked, why can't Isolino use internet? Why can't Isolino have access to any computer? Why can't Isolino do this dopey job on the side? This is not a full-time job. Not a full-time job at all. I did it in my spare time, and I created a channel that was sold that is 4 times the size of yours. You're telling me Isolino, wherever the hell he was, couldn't do this part-time? Why can't Isolino see his kids? Why can't Isolino see any kids? Why can't Isolino have access to the internet? See, Gina, you don't need to be a genius or an investigator to ask the question why. And then if they say well, he's going through a crazy divorce, okay, we know people that go through crazy divorces, but they're not prohibited from using the cell phone, the internet, access to their kids. I don't know.
That time, Muttering Jay was, going after producer Joe, digging up all his shit. And we were like, this is an ugly divorce. We don't want Iso shit getting out there. So
is anyone buying this story? So now they're claiming that because Muttering Jay was going after Producer Joe, that was all public information. There's nothing Muttering Jay is going to get that isn't public. Why would that have anything to do with a pedophile? And I say this, producer Phil Russo looks amazing right now. The fact that Phil took out his gun on an elderly man, it's really not a big deal compared to what this other guy did. It's actually nothing. I have zero hard feelings towards Phil. Yeah, so Phil yelled at someone at a hospital. Okay, now I'm looking at that. That's nothing. No hard feelings. He's the employee of the year compared to Isolino.
We would just say Iso's still around just to keep the trolls out. He had no access to anything.
Bob, no access to anything. Were you part of this group? I know Bob is smart, and you can watch him do his show, and he does that act I can't read. Bullshit. Speak to Bob privately. The guy is cunning and he's smart.
He had no contact with anybody as far as work or payment. And all of us just assumed he's doing a divorce thing and figuring it out.
So let's just say the Dewspair's new story, which is the 3rd version now, is true. You don't think at all about asking him why and then following up? That's being complacent, Bob. That's why we're not going to allow Bob to be complacent. We're not going to allow Gina. We're not going to allow anybody around the Dewspair to be complacent. Isolino came up with this premise. Isolino came up with the name of the Uncle Rico. I mean, Shuley ripped it off from Karl, but it didn't have a name. He couldn't rip off the same name as Karl. He had to come up with a different name. Apparently, that's what Isolino did. If that's true, take that goddamn name off now, Bob. Gina, Mike, Zen, if you give a shit, you want a pedophile naming your number one show? You want that to be your heritage, your lineage?
Yeah.
Right. The way it was explained to me was it was going to get ugly over the kids, and he needed something steady and something, a real job. And so we understood.
Dewsbury, do you just believe that? After all this, he can't help you guys out at all? Can't access the computer at all? The internet at all? Now, again, I believe that they're just being negligent here. I don't think that he intentionally was involved in this.
So, but he was, look, there's no denying Iso is the one that helped me start broadcasting, doing all this stuff. He helped us with everything. He was our only producer back then. We had no staff. It was just us and Iso. None of us knew. And at that time, he was part of the team, up until we found out what we found out.
As is with any of people like that, or
sure.
Yeah. I mean, you don't know until you know, and you've worked with, people have worked with these people until you find out.
Mike, you're helping this guy out, not in a positive way. You should be telling him, guys, we fucked up big time. Let's just say we didn't know since May 26, 2023, 18 months, we didn't know that our number one guy, our founder, was a pedophile, even though it was publicized on the internet by the federal government. We have to say, look, we have to have a better system in place, Mike. That's what you say as you grow. I know the Dewsbury didn't know this initially, but the cover-up is going to be worse. Just come clean and say that we're really, really bad at hiring.
School with and played soccer with, ended up murdering his uncle.
Who cares?
Not too long ago.
It's like, I'm starting to see a pattern here, Carl.
Whenever you're arguing with someone and they start to bring in these distractions, they call them a red herring. But either way, it's distraction. Bring the argument back to the box. We're talking about the Dewsbury employing a pedophile. That's what we're talking about. Not your uncle, not some other guy you brought on the show. We're talking about the guy that you had in your basement. The guy that you broke bread with. That's who we're speaking about. We don't care about anyone else.
Yeah, right? Oh, everyone in your life is a child molester and a murderer? Yeah, but not me. I'm the only good one.
So I get it. That's all you can say. You can say, listen, the dude got caught. He did some fucked up shit. We're dealing with that. I saw they started deleting episodes, too, and I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I think that's kind of weird. But
well,
uh-oh. Is someone disagreeing with Karl on his show? I mean, Karl usually just has the dunces around them. Does someone have a different opinion?
Shuli mentioned this on Point Dabble Point. Mm-hmm. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Yeah. Correct.
And that's true. I mean, what is the newspaper supposed to do? If he deletes them, then yeah, they're going to say he's covering up. If he doesn't delete him, they're going to say that he's profiting off of a pedophile. But you know what he didn't delete? The name of his number one show, his number one asset, the Uncle Rico show. You got to delete that, Dewsbury. You can't delete the things that don't cost you any money. No one's watching those old shows. There was 600 views on the ones that we downloaded. We have them all. But either way, get rid of the thing that actually counts. That's what we're looking for, Gina, some action. If Shuli really cares, he would not keep the name that a known pedophile came up with. They took down any reference to Joe Paterno in Penn State because Joe Paterno is a disgusting human being. And it's very rightfully so. I know the people that go to Penn State and played football thought that he was the best thing ever, but he's not. He had the ability to stop it. He was complacent. Does that remind you of anybody? Everyone was complacent and say, we don't want to destroy the goose that lays this golden egg, that stupid football, perpetuating an inflatable ball up and down a piece of grass. That was more important than saving these kids. You have the opportunity to save some kids out there. Who knows the last video that he exchanged? Is that kid still being abused? Get to the FBI today. That's everyone that had any contact with Isolino.
Thing. So if he leaves up episodes where Iso's the co-host or something, people are like, this is disgusting.
Yeah. Karl, he's leaving up the episode, every single one that was named by him. Let's see some action. Get rid of that stupid name.
Trying to get views and profit. I was like, he did the right thing. Scrape all of that shit off the internet.
Yeah.
There you go. Karl's telling you, scrape it off. That means every single episode of the Uncle Rico show. They're not worth anything once you're done with them anyway. But you got to change the name. Karl's even telling you this.
Yeah, if you have the option, I understand that. But I get it. But it's kind of like sweeping shit under the there's no right way to do it, man.
He's not sweeping anything under the rug.
Karl hates when anyone disagrees and can't even deal with it.
What should I turn to? Stuttering John?
Yeah, Stuttering John's a funnier topic than child porn.
Not anymore, Karl. Unfortunately, it doesn't matter. What are you going to say? Everything you say doesn't compare to what TSN was doing. This is their number one guy. It's not funny anymore.
It's hard to make that funny. Hard to
could
make
be
that
funny
fun.
if it was-
This stuff, and he goes on later on the show and says it again. So I didn't know a lot about the ESO case and what was going on, but I did a Creep Off bonus show, if you want to check it out on our Creep Off Patreon, where
Always
Vinny
plugging, Karl.
did a little deep
Hell yeah.
dive and schooled me into what ESO has been up to since 2016. What a piece of garbage.
Do you believe Karl at all when he's saying that? He lacks so much authenticity when he's saying, "What a piece of garbage." It doesn't feel at all truthful. He doesn't give a shit. And not that he has to give a shit, but when he's saying it there, he doesn't give a shit.
Yeah.
The way he treated his wife and his family,
Treated his wife and family. None of them were affected by this when he was doing this. Treated them? What about the kids? What about the infants, Gina?
he could really just rot in hell.
I'm with you
He's
100%.
garbage.
I'm with you.
He wanted to take his wife down with him. That was what he threatened her with. Yeah, so we did a Creep Off bonus show yesterday morning. Vinny came over here, and he did some great research into what actually went down with ESO and his wife and how she turned him into the police and all the evidence and all the shit that was going on. And it's like, wow, who knew? How would you possibly know?
Again, how would you possibly know? First of all, there's no authenticity in what Karl's saying. Second, this is SUNY Brockport logic. No offense to SUNY Brockport. I'm sure someone that graduated from there has got some intelligence, but this is SUNY Brockport logic. I'm going to get into exactly why Karl is way off.
Something
here.
like that is going on, and we are addressing it on every fucking show that we're on. Everyone's talking about it, but Kevin wants this narrative that we're afraid.
Okay, Karl, here's why I call it SUNY Brockport logic. Now, you heard Karl, not upset about the kids, but wants to honor this wife. And in fact, in another show, he's saying how courageous the wife was in actually reporting him. Well, Karl, look at this. I know they don't teach this at SUNY Brockport. September 2016. Let that date sink in, Gina. September 2016. The wife finds the thumb drive in the weed grinder. Do we know anyone else that uses a weed grinder, smokes weed in basement, and plays kids games at night? Over 40 years old, girls, it's time to move on from that guy. But remember, the wife found this in 2016. Look what she found. Toddler aged to about 10 years old. They were naked. Toddler age, Gina, to 10 years old. That's 2016. Pay attention to the dates. They're very important. Now, the wife admits, CW1 as the wife, acknowledged not contacting the police at that time this incident occurred. What does that mean, Gina? From 2016 until May of 2023, 7 years go by. Over 7 years go by where she allowed this guy, Isolino, to perpetuate more harm on infants and children. Do you understand, Karl, how dopey that logic is? You understand how dumb that is to say that somehow this girl did something great? She was the only one, not the dues payer, not Bob, not Gina, not Mike, not Karl. She was the only one that knew and allowed it to go on for 8 years. And the only time she ever came to the cops was when it was during a divorce, when it was advantageous for her. She is no hero. She's actually almost as worse as Isolino for allowing it knowingly. We know she knew. She admitted there. Assuming that this is true, she knew, Karl. You big dope. You have Moonhead giving you legal advice. Moonhead and analyzing this. 8 years. That broad. Dumb broad. And I apologize to the girls, but that she did this for 8 years, allowed it to go on. You dopes. So don't be praising her at all. This has nothing to do with her. Why would you even talk about her? She's the second worst person in this situation. The only time she went to the cops when it was advantageous for her, you idiots. And again, I apologize to SUNY Brockport. I'm sure someone out there is intelligent that graduated from there. But this is so dumb to say.